Okay. I spoke to the other class beforehand, and I had originally planned for both classes to talk about like a one topic kind of thing, but Rabbi Plotnick gave me a bunch of ideas of things that people want to hear about, and then some other people filled in questions that they wanted taken care of also. Some of them who were even in this room, so I'm just going to do a bunch of things, but by no means do we have to be stuck to these questions. I have a bunch to do, but you can ask questions along the way if you want to and stick in your 2 cents. I'd much rather talk and you can respond instead of me just talking to myself. Okay, so the first question is, I go to a stadium and I know that they have kosher hot dogs, but there's no hashgacha on the stand. And the question is there anything wrong with buying those hot dogs? Okay, I know they use kosher hot dogs, so what could be wrong with what I'm doing? Okay, so before I tell you my answer, any guesses over here? What could be wrong?
Marasayan.
What? Marasayan. Okay. Anything else?
Tshuva.
That what? That what?
You're not supposed to sell food without tshuva.
That's his problem. That's not my problem. I want to buy it.
Yeah, but they put out a cold curry against it.
Oh, so you're saying, got it. So I shouldn't buy it because, now the Rabbanim said you shouldn't buy things that don't have hashgacha, so that's really a reason to buy it. Okay, well, so I guess let's like creep back, and why would they say that then? Let's sort of help us understand that, Oh, because that's what we mean by dark tshuva. Got it, okay. Food has to have hashgacha. Okay. Can you think of any other reasons?
Anything else mixed in?
Other things, it's a hot dog,
May also sell non-kosher stuff.
What do you say?
May also sell non-kosher stuff.
Might sell non-kosher stuff, okay. Okay, so I think of 2 problems. Okay, I came up with 2 problems. Okay, some of which you said maybe. First is like this. There's a general rule that says like this. If you have a food that could be kosher, could be treif, the same food could be kosher or treif, then you can't leave that food with someone who's not Shemer Shabbos unless it's sealed in a way that you know he doesn't change it. So it means because that person might have switched the food from one for the other one. Okay, and the most common example of that is you order food with Uber Eats. You tell them go to the restaurant and pick up for me a sandwich and bring it to my house. Okay, so he picked up the sandwich. The one he picked up was kosher. How do you know that the sandwich that came to your house is the one that he picked up, and not that he switched it for something else? So anything that needs to be that could be treif. I mean, let's say it's just an apple. Well, apple can't be treif, so I don't need a seal on it. But something that could be treif, like a corned beef sandwich, it could be treif. Then I can't consider it kosher unless it's by a Shemer Shabbos person or it has some kind of a seal on it. So wait a second. So when the guy picks up the Uber Eats, they have to seal it from in the restaurant so that when it shows up in my house, I know that I got a kosher food. Yes.
Even in like the restaurant, like the guy seals it. That's not a problem.
Well, he seals it because there's a mashgiach keeping an eye on it. The mashgiach is making sure he only seals the kosher stuff. He doesn't seal the pork sandwiches. Okay, but now, so it also comes up. If you leave someone in your house. Okay, you leave someone working in your house who's not Shemer Shabbos and they're there by themselves. So if they think you might come back at some point, then no problem because they're afraid to switch something because you catch them. But if they don't have any fear of being caught, like the Uber Eats guy or the guy someone working in your house when they know no one's going to come home, then the food has to be sealed up. Okay, so the hot dog stand is the same thing. Even if we believe that what they order in is kosher hot dogs, okay, we have no idea. Right now it's under control. Wait a second. It's under control of someone who's not Shemer Shabbos. We have no idea whether the hot dog that I'm getting is the hot dog that originally showed up the first day. Yes?
The guy selling hot dogs isn't Shemer Shabbos?
If he is, then we come to his dark tshuva. If he is, then it's just a matter of he's a firm person, and we say, okay, I trust you, the firm person. Then we have to question is, well, he's running a business. Maybe that takes away from his being trustable, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about, no, I'm just walking to a regular stand. There's just a stand there, and Jose is selling the hot dogs. I say, but I know that they like kosher hot dogs. Okay, but when they bought the kosher hot dogs, now it's just loose. It's not under any seal or anything like that. I have no way of knowing whether I'm getting kosher hot dog. Okay? Now that's one reason. The second reason is I have to make sure I'm actually getting a kosher hot dog in the first place. The second is that how do I know what happened with those kalim? Okay, they're cooking the hot dogs right there. How do I know what they cooked yesterday on those? Maybe yesterday they were cooking treif hot dogs. So even if the hot dog per se is kosher, that doesn't mean that the hot dog that I'm getting still is kosher. Maybe it became treif by the way they cooked it over there. Okay, so those are 2 reasons why you would not buy from a stand like that didn't have hashgacha. Okay, there are stadiums. They used to be in Chicago, and there are still other places where there's hashgacha on it. like you said, there's a Shomer Shabbos person who runs the stand. He's the mashgiach. He's the mashgiach for the stand, and he makes sure the kelim are kosher. He makes sure the hot dogs are kosher, etc. Okay. Next question. A different kind of question. And the question goes. This is how the question is phrased. From a Kashrus perspective, is it okay to vape? Okay, that's the question. Okay, so I have two parts of my answer to that question. The first part is like this: in Shulchan Aruch Yerdea is where the halachas of Kashrus are, right? It's in Yerdea. Most of the halachas of Kashrus are in Yerdea. So in Siman Kuf Tezayin, is a whole siman about foods that are dangerous. That if a person eats them, you're not allowed to eat these foods because it's dangerous. Okay, one of the dinim that you know about, which is in that siman, is that a person is not supposed to eat meat and fish together. Okay, because in the times of the Gemara that was considered dangerous. We don't know exactly what that means, but it's considered dangerous to eat them together. So one of the things in that siman is that you're not allowed to eat those things together. And it has all kinds of things like that that are, so to speak, not kosher because they're not safe for you. Okay, so before I talk to you about what you might have thought are the kashrus issues for vaping, you have to think about whether it's safe and healthy for a person to do it. And what I'm trying to say is that that's also a, so to speak, kashrus issue. Okay, if something is not safe, then that's not kosher either. So that's one thing. I mean, you probably heard, your mother's told you that it's, how not good it is for your development and for who knows what, for breathing and whatever else. So that's one potential reason. Okay, but then within the traditional, what you think of as regular kashrus concerns, almost every vape juice, contains in it two ingredients that are sensitive. There may be others, but it almost always contains glycerin in it and flavor. Glycerin is something that comes from either animal fat or from vegetable oil. If it comes from vegetable oil, usually it's kosher. Not always, but usually it's kosher. If it comes from animal fat, it's obviously not kosher. Commercially, that means it's not kosher. Those two things need hashgacha for them. The flavor and the glycerin need hashgacha for them. Now, there's a little bit of a catch-22 over here, and that is because I'm saying to you, you need to use it with hashgacha. So you say, okay, I'm ready to buy it with hashgacha. The problem is that most hashgachas, seriously included, won't give hashgacha to it. Companies have approached and said to us, would you certify our juice? And we say, no, we won't, because of the first reason, because we didn't think it was so safe to use it. So you're sort of stuck, because you say to me, okay, can I use it? You say, no, you can't use that hashgacha. I say, okay, let's get hashgacha. I say, no, we won't give hashgacha. Now, there are agencies that will certify it. There are. But most agencies won't, and so that sort of puts you in a funny situation, because here it is, it should need hashgacha, but on the other hand, it's really hard to find one with hashgacha. So, okay, guys, you got to speak a little bit. We need some more life over here.
Why wouldn't hashgacha give it if we know that people are going to use it anyway? So
it's a big question what they should do, because the first thing I told you is that if it's not safe, then we can't say that it's kosher. We can't really say that's kosher when you're really not supposed to do it. You just turn one more page in Shulchan Aruch and it says that don't do something that's not safe. So
some people say that energy drinks aren't either kosher. So why is anybody giving hashgacha?
So it's a really good question, which is there's lots of things that are people think are or not safe. They're sort of in between. Not like eating an apple, right? Something that are more questionable whether they're safe or they're not safe. And some of them we give hashgacha, some of them we don't. It's a good question. And the question is, what's the difference between this? Let me step back a second. If you ask the CRC, why would you give hashgacha on an energy drink? So we would say is because it's kosher. He says, but it's not safe. Let's say it's not safe. Like for example, it was just in the news that they want. We're going to talk about Prime in a minute. That the Prime energy drink, the government is looking into it. Oh my God, it has enough caffeine to keep you up from now all the way till next Shavuos. Okay, it's like keep you. You'll never fall asleep with this stuff. So if someone thinks that that's not safe, so they say, how could you give hashgacha to something that's not safe? And the answer we would usually give to you is that our job is to make sure food is kosher ingredients and kosher equipment, etc., like that, and Bishul Yisrael and all kinds of things like that. Whether it's safe, the government is more expert on that. They take care of it whether things are safe or not. If that was correct, if that was really true, then we'd say, hey, the government lets you vape, so we should let it also. So it's a good question. Why would we give hashgacha on an energy drink that some people think is not safe, but we wouldn't give hashgacha on vaping juice that some people think is not safe either? So Okay, I don't.
Why isn't there a Kosher for vape juice that is just saying that everything is kosher and it will be separate Kosher?
So, what would you think if I told you that these vegetables are kosher, but there are bugs in them? So we're not taking care of the bugs. So you'd say, oh, what are you talking about? Hello, if it's kosher, it means I'm allowed to eat it. Well, if I'm allowed to eat it, then you have to take care of the bugs also, right? You wouldn't that would be pretty silly, right? You would say that's ridiculous. That's not kosher. So
no, we're saying everything is kosher up to the point where we give Hesher, but we can't give Hesher out to the first reason. Now we're giving Hesher. So, everything about them is kosher. It's not. Now it's
okay. So it's not so clear. Again, the Shulchan Aruch says you can't do things that are dangerous. So should I give you something that's dangerous? So you say, I'm not convinced. I'm not 100% convinced of what I'm saying. I'm saying because it's dangerous. The question is, but there are other things that people think are dangerous, and we say whatever the government says, let the government, the health department decide if it's dangerous or not. Okay, it's a good question.
Well, my CF guy is doing it, so it's not like lifting even or something like that.
Right? That's a good question. We say, hello, there's lots of people doing it. So if they're all doing it, we have to help those people. I mean, if I came to you and said you buy brand X instead of brand Y, that's what you would do. But now I'm telling you, you can't buy any brand. You say, so what am I supposed to do now? Like, you want me to drink Pepsi? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's not going to work. Okay, it's a good question.
There are abundant hold it's not dangerous.
And therefore what?
And therefore, that part the first issue would be something that someone should ask us Rav about.
So
The Rav says
if the person thinks the Rav who thinks it's not dangerous wants to give hashgacha, then he's good. The problem is that's where we're stuck over here, is because the people giving hashgacha, not all of them, almost all of them are on the side of this stuff is not safe. We shouldn't be giving hashgacha to this. So that's where we're stuck on that side. When you find the person who says, it's not, don't worry about it, dangerous, or he says like him, I'm just going to take care of the ingredients. The safety is not my issue. Then he would give hashgacha. But it's I'm telling you, there's not much out there. It's hard to find one that is hashgacha that's kosher because of this problem. So
they have advertisements for these chocolates that are CBD chocolates, and they give hashgacha.
that it's CBD.
CBD infused.
No, the CBD. Everybody would kosher. You mean like THC infused?
So
Whatever it says, they have,
Yeah.
they have chocolates.
Right. So when the CRC for a while gave hashgacha on two different companies making marijuana, edible marijuana products, but they were for medical purpose, medical use only. They were in states that at the time were only allowed medical marijuana. For recreational, we wouldn't give hashgacha. They told them at the time, we won't give hashgacha if you use it for recreational, because they thought it was not safe. They was like in between like that, So you could have had stuff there was stuff that was CRC, but it was only for medical marijuana, that was THC. CBD, they would give hashgacha. That's not considered dangerous. Not considered, problematic. Okay, let's go to something simpler. Okay, and that is, do you need to have hashgacha for your mouthwash and toothpaste? Any thoughts here?
You're not swallowing it.
You're not swallowing it. Okay,
You're not planning
so you're good. What did you say?
You're not planning on swallowing it.
You're not planning on swallowing it, so you're on his side, yeah.
But those happen to swallow sometimes.
Okay, but as long as you swallow it, okay. Any other guesses? How many guys in the room here? Any 3 opinions already? Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so.
What are the ingredients inside that are child?
Okay, so he says, "Hey, we're off the hook. Don't worry about it. It's all kosher anyhow. What could we trace about it?" Yeah? As I told the other class, there were people who had this theory. They said, if I can't pronounce it, then it's kosher. Right? So if I look at it, for sure it's kosher. Okay, so the first thing is like this. To what a whole bunch of people said first, and that is like this: Midoraisa, you're only ervin iser if you swallow something that's not kosher. But midrabanan, you're also not allowed to taste something that's not kosher either. So even though you didn't swallow it, that doesn't get you off the hook. Okay, just that you put it into your mouth and you taste the food, that's already enough of a problem. Also, almost every toothpaste and almost every toothpaste and mouthwash has in it glycerin in it. I mentioned glycerin already. I should use a marker to show you. Anybody here know what glycerin is?
Animal fat.
Yeah, no. I told you it could go from animal fat or vegetable oil, but okay, what?
It's like a thickener.
It's not a thickener. No, that's gelatin. You're thinking. Glycerin is I'll just give her a second, okay? It's English time. I can tell you something about science. Okay, glycerin is all oils and fats are made of 2 parts. One part is glycerin, Okay, and the glycerin is attached to 3 fatty acids. Okay, the fatty acids is a long chain of something of carbons, whatever it is. That's not important what it is. The difference between one fat or oil and the next, let's say the difference between chicken fat and olive oil, they don't look at all the same, right? Chicken fat and olive oil don't see the same. They have the exact same glycerin, but the difference is which fatty acids it has. Depending on the mix of fatty acids will depend on what it tastes like, what its melting point is, all kinds of features about it have to do with the fatty acid. But the glycerin is the same from one and from the other. Okay? Anyhow, so almost all of them have glycerin in them. So the debate is why some people think it needs hashgacha and some people don't. Depends on the following. How do you decide if something is considered not edible? When something is not edible, it becomes any parts of it are not important anymore. So how do you know something is considered not edible or not? And there's a big debate as to how bad does it have to be not edible? Some people say not edible means is like you can't eat it. Like think about a raw potato. Okay, try eating a raw potato or a piece of sand. Okay, or a spoiled piece of bread. If you wouldn't be able to get it down. It's putrid. Okay, you wouldn't be able to eat the thing. Okay, that's what some people say. So they say toothpaste and mouthwash. Those are fine. I mean, they may not be great, but they're okay. You could swallow it if you wanted to. That's what some people say. And other people look at it and say no. Edible means is if you had a choice. If I put down I don't know, a slice of pizza, a cookie, and toothpaste. Okay, how many people would choose the toothpaste to eat? Okay, none. Okay, in other words, it's not within the range of what things people would eat. You eat it, you put it into your mouth because you have some special reason why you have to. But nobody would think of this as a food. Nobody would look at this thing and say, "Oh, that's a food item." No one would dream that thing is a food item. It doesn't taste at all like food. You can get it down, but you would never choose to eat that food. And they say, therefore, it's not considered edible. Okay, so this is a question. Those people who think that toothpaste and mouthwash are considered not edible, because the cutoff just means is something you wouldn't choose to eat by choice, then they say it doesn't need hashgacha. And other people say they are considered edible. They are considered in the range of edible, and therefore it needs hashgacha because this is considered edible. Yes, what do you want to say?
The same thing was before, like vape juice is not edible.
Because
You can't drink it or eat it.
why can't you drink it?
It's dangerous.
Why do you think it's dangerous?
I don't-
So you're really saying something much smarter than you think you're even saying. Okay, and that is that there actually is a question about that because most vape juice, especially the kind that people want, most vape juice has nicotine in it. Okay, and nicotine, if you swallow it in real quantities, is very dangerous. Okay, it's quite dangerous to swallow nicotine. If you drink a cup of that stuff, that will really not be good for you. Okay, no, really, you're vaping only a small amount, and you're not swallowing it; you're inhaling it. So there's an argument, I didn't talk about that part, the whole separate shaila, that maybe it's considered not edible because of that part of it. The other ingredients that are in there are completely edible ingredients. The rest of the things that are in there are all fine, regular stuff. But that's I didn't talk about that shaila. There's such a side that maybe it's considered not edible. Okay, but in the mouthwash and toothpaste, that's the big question here, whether it is or is not edible. Now, it happens to be the CRC's position is that those are considered not edible. Okay, and so if you call the CRC and say, "Hi, can I use this and this brand of toothpaste and mouthwash?" I'll tell you can use any brand. But they know some people don't want to do that, so they have on their list things that are ones that either have a hechsher on them or they know don't have any glycerin in them. You can find toothpaste and mouthwash both that don't have glycerin in them, which is the most sensitive for those items. And then people who want to be more makbid can eat those even without hashgacha. They can use those that they know don't have glycerin in them. Okay. Any questions on this so far?
Glycerin is the only shaila about toothpaste.
It's not the only shaila, it's the most serious shaila. It tends to have a flavor, it has flavors in it also, but compared to everything else that's going on, the glycerin is what people focus on. That's the most serious part of the shaila. And all the big brands have a few varieties that don't have glycerin in them, and mouthwash also, there are certain ones that don't have glycerin in them. You have a question?
On toothpaste compared to like Brussels sprouts and asparagus, some people will take a toothpaste.
A lot of people what?
Compared to like Brussels sprouts and stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of people will take the toothpaste.
If they had a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so said like a true teenager. Most, the people, I'd much rather eat toothpaste than eat vegetables. Okay, so, but for the most of the people in the public, I'm not saying that everyone has to like Brussels sprouts. I'm saying is, but for in the world, they sell it in the fruit store. Like, I mean, it's like sold as a normal food. There's lots of people who think that's edible. There's nothing in the fruit store that looks anything like toothpaste. You know what I mean? There's nothing there that people say, God, let's take spoonfuls of this stuff. Like, that doesn't strike anybody that that's like a normal thing to eat. You know what I mean? Okay, so, okay, let's move on. Okay, and the next question is, which drinks could you buy without hashgacha? Including our favorite one, we'll get to at the end. Okay, say one that I'm sure nobody here ever tasted. Okay, and that is like this. This one I actually was planning only to do with this class, not with there, but they asked me about it, so I did for them also. Okay, and that's like this. We're going to start from the simplest. Okay, plain water or seltzer that's not flavored, has nothing else in it, just plain water or plain seltzer, doesn't need hashgacha. Okay, that's the safest. Wow, we're safe. Okay, if it has flavors, flavored thing needs hashgacha because the flavor could have non-kosher ingredients. Sometimes bottled water has other things into it, like other minerals and things into it. Usually they're not a problem. It's worth asking, calling up like the CRC or somebody who who knows ingredients and say to them, here, let me read you these ingredients. Tell me if these are an issue. Usually they're not. Okay, I'm not saying never, but usually they're not. Okay, now, a step up from that, yeah.
Put the ingredients, all the minerals on the bottles?
Yeah, it would say on it. It'll say on it. It might say with minerals, but then in the ingredient panel, it would tell you what they added into it. Let me take that back. If they add things into it, it would say that. Sometimes they'll say, when we take it out of this in the spring, it comes with all kinds of minerals already into it. That's nothing, that's just water. But sometimes usually it's because they added something into it, and then it would say on the ingredient panel. Okay, now, the juice of almost every single fruit and vegetable is inherently kosher. Okay, there's one big exception, and that is somebody. What?
Orange juice.
Why would oranges not be kosher?
Grape.
Okay, now I'm talking about the juice itself. Just we have pure juice.
Grape juice.
What? Grape juice. Okay, and grape juice is because grape juice. If someone who's not Shem Shabbos touches grape juice when it's not mavushal, it becomes treif, it becomes stam yayin. Okay, so grape juice is the juice that's the one that's the kosher sensitive. We could buy one with hashgacha, but everything else is going to be not kosher. Okay, otherwise, tomato juice and carrot juice and apple juice and orange juice are all inherently kosher. Okay, I should have thought about the bug part. We're not going to talk about that. Okay, well, they're inherently kosher. So the thing is that if I squeeze apples and I make apple juice, then by the time it gets to your house, it's going to spoil. It's going to rot. Okay, it's going to ferment and it's going to spoil. So you have to do something to preserve it, to make sure it doesn't spoil. And that is, you could freeze it. Okay, if you freeze it, it won't spoil. That would be fine. But if you're buying it in a liquid form, what they did to make sure that it didn't spoil was
Preservatives.
They could add preservatives. They usually do something simpler. They pasteurize it. Pasteurize it means you heat it up to a certain temperature, a high temperature, for a couple of seconds. That kills anything in there, any of the bacteria in there that would have caused it to spoil. You put it into a bottle that's sterile also, and then it doesn't spoil. Okay. Sometimes it's so good, it's so sterile that it doesn't have to even be refrigerated. Sometimes, like a bottle of milk, they put it into the bottle, or sometimes orange juice, they put it into a bottle. It's sterile that it won't spoil right away, but if you keep it refrigerated, make it last even longer. Okay? But now the problem is that same equipment that you could pasteurize your juice on, you could also pasteurize grape juice on it. You could also pasteurize chicken soup or other stuff on there that might not be kosher. So the reason why those juices need hashgacha is not, even if it's pure juice, is not because the juice itself is treif, but because the juice might have been made on kalim that were not kosher.
Every single juice needs an hashgacha.
Say it again.
Basically, every single juice.
Right. So as a rule, juices are going to need hashgacha, even if it's pure juice. It's pure pear juice, okay? But pear juice would spoil if you didn't pasteurize it, and therefore needs hashgacha because of the kalim that it was made on. Okay. Now, now we get a little break, and that is soda. Okay? What do you make soda out of? Okay, so soda has 5 components in soda. Okay, and you'll see that 4 of them are not going to be an issue, and only 1 of them is an issue. Okay, the first. Anybody guess what the 5 components of it makes? What? Corn syrup is a what we call that group a sweetener. Okay, there's something in there that makes it sweet. So like a diet soda, it doesn't have corn syrup, it has something else. Okay, the sweeteners, as a rule, don't need hashgacha. That's one group. Okay, water. Okay, water doesn't. I told you doesn't need hashgacha. Bubbles, carbonation. Okay, so seltzer. Okay, so I told you carbonation doesn't need hashgacha either. So we're good. We have three. Okay, then okay. No. Okay. So what he meant to say was there's some minor ingredients like sodium citrate. Okay, some minor ingredients. Those, as a rule, are not a problem. Okay, that they're either kosher or bottle or both. Okay, and then the last component is. Okay. Well. Okay. The last component is flavor. Color is included with flavor. Okay, it's flavor. So the flavor is the sensitive part of it. Everything else about there is not sensitive. The sensitive part is the flavor. Now, there's another good thing. Another thing about soda is that because it's carbonated, it doesn't spoil. Okay? the carbonation keeps it from spoiling. So soda is not pasteurized. Soda goes into the bottle at cold or ambient temperature. It's not pasteurized. So we don't have to worry about the kalim. So the only thing we worry about is the flavor that's in there. And because of that, if I know he has a bottle of Sprite there, I don't know if there's a kosher symbol on there. But if we know that Sprite, the flavor that makes something taste like Sprite is kosher, then I could buy it even without hashgacha. Okay, I'll take that back. I could buy that in the United States without hashgacha on it, because I know that the flavor in the United States that makes Sprite is kosher. I don't know if the flavor in Guatemala that makes Sprite is kosher, but in the United States I know that it's kosher, so I could buy that. If I know, what happens if we come out? Coke just came out with a new variety, some special varieties, temporary varieties. So I have no idea if that's kosher or not. If I want to know if that is, I'm going to have to find out if that variety is kosher. If it is, then I can buy it even without a symbol on it. Okay? So how are you going to find that out? That's why you're going to call us. Okay? Because people like the CRC keep track of that. There's hashkachas. There's one hashkacha that serves lots of almost everything at Pepsi, one for almost everything at Coke, one for like Dr. Pepper. So we keep in touch with them to know which of their varieties are kosher, which are not. And then we have this long list that says all these varieties are kosher, and then you could buy them even if they don't have hashgacha, again, because there's no kalim issue. It's just the flavor, and therefore we're okay. Yes.
This is only in the United States, or like also like civilized countries like Europe?
No, only United States. It's only for maybe United States and Canada. But once you move to other places, if you go to England, then those flavors you have to ask the local people. Is the local people the place where they make orange Fanta? Is that on the hashgacha or is it not on the hashgacha? In the United States, I can tell you that it is. But what's over there, I have no idea.
This is that OU on it, so I can see that every can of Sprite is kosher.
So, yeah, if you would see it once on Sprite, then you'd say, okay, I now know that Sprite, is that plain Sprite?
I think so.
Yeah, so I know that plain Sprite is kosher. So then I know that it's gonna be kosher even without a symbol on it. Correct. Pepsi's under hashgacha of somebody named Rabbi Chalap, who lives in New York. He gets hashgacha for a lot of the Pepsi products. Almost all the Pepsi products. Dr. Pepper's under the OK. It's hashgacha. So like, what do you say? So there will only be a symbol on it if the place where they bottle it has hashgacha. He gives hashgacha on the place that makes the flavor. The place that actually puts it into the can would have to be having hashgacha for there to be a symbol on the package. So some places there are, and some places there aren't. Depends where you live. Whether it would not be a problem. But let's say
they package orange juice in cans on the same line.
So the orange, I guess that could happen. It would be really unusual. Again, because orange juice has to be hot, but
different Pepsi flavor. That's not kosher.
But being as it's always done cold, so the fact that they made one thing treif on it, that they made it could be they made something treif, like you said, maybe another flavor that was not kosher, it could be. But the thing that was, since it's cold, they don't have to worry. Nothing. It's not going to get treif from the kalim.
They wash it.
They're going to wash it. Yeah, they're going to wash it in between. So I don't have to worry about flavor transferring over because it won't become treif from there.
What about on the game?
What did you say?
It could be same on the game.
To clean? Yeah.
They're not putting it on any other stuff.
When they make Sprite, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're very particular about that. So it's actually interesting. When you go to like 7-Eleven, they're very particular that what it says on the front. If it says on the front that this is grape Fanta, whatever it says on the front, that's actually what they're giving. Not because the store so much cares, but the corporate people keep an eye on the stores to make sure they put the right stuff into it. In other chains, not necessarily. Not necessarily what it says on the front is what you have in the back. It says orange in the front, but it might be that they ran out of the brand name, they took an off-brand. But the 7-Eleven stores, that's why we tell people you can buy these flavors of Slurpee, because you could be sure that what you're getting in the front is what's really in the back.
So any single Slurpee that has soda
So
that is
Coke,
kosher.
Pepsi, that
No, if you no. If the soda is kosher, doesn't mean the Slurpee is kosher. But if you know that it's not the same flavor, it's not the same thing. But we have a list of Slurpees also. So if you knew that flavor of Slurpee is okay, then you could buy that in any 7-Eleven. But that doesn't necessarily mean you should buy it in a different chain of stores, because they may not be as careful.
7-Eleven, it's allowed not to every single flavor.
Right, not every flavor is kosher. No, some of them are not, and some of them are milchiks actually. But we have a list of them. So we talk to the people, give hashgacha, and put all that information together. So you say, I wonder if this and this flavor is okay. Then I know it is. Okay.
What about Coke? In every other country, like don't they have they definitely have one flavor for the whole thing?
So I'm sure that the Coke, the formula for the actual Coke, is the same formulation. In other words, 3 ounces of this and 6 ounces of this, and how they make it. But that doesn't mean that the suppliers are kosher. Just let's say they have a sensitive ingredient. So in the United States, it's on the hashgacha. If I go to Spain, I don't know if it's on the hashgacha. If it is, yeah. If not, we have no idea. So, okay. Now, our last thing that we have to talk about is energy drinks. Okay. So energy drinks, like everyone's favorite, energy drinks have a lot of ingredients. They always have a flavor in them. So we're already stuck that we need hashgacha because of the flavor. They often have other sensitive ingredients. Plus, energy drinks are not carbonated as a rule, so they need to be pasteurized also. So we're getting it from both sides. We're getting it first of all because they have flavors and maybe other sensitive ingredients that needs hashgacha, and they're made on equipment that's could be used for other stuff. That another reason why it needs hashgacha. Now it happens to be that energy drinks, and to a certain extent juices also, it's hard to give hashgacha. And that's because the companies who make this stuff want to run all the time, literally 24/7. They never stop. They stop between products for 15 minutes, they wash the stuff out and keep on moving to the next one. And one of the basic rules of koshering is that things have to be Eina ben Yomi before you kosher them. You have to not use them for 24 hours before you kosher them. Well, at a company like this, it's really difficult to be Eina ben Yomi, to wait 24 hours. So people have all these ways of trying to get around that, to try to avoid waiting 24 hours. Some of them are better than others, and it happens to be the equipment itself is hard to kosher. Just the way the equipment runs, it's hard to kosher. So it needs a good hashgacha. Okay, so the energy drink needs hashgacha because of the kalim and because of the ingredients. And there happens to be the hashgacha on that happens to be somewhat complicated also. Giving the hashgacha itself is a complicated thing. I'll say like Prime has a hashgacha onto it, and they're working on getting themselves together that the hashgacha should be good enough that we should be comfortable with it, but they're not there yet. They're working on it. They're putting a lot of effort into it to make sure that it should be done right. At which point we're happy to recommend it. We've been working with them to a certain amount, but until then we're not recommending it. Okay.
Right, well,
I spoke to a lady, Pakistani in the Arabic, and he said he has information that to the point that even the laws are.
Okay, so it's interesting because they told me that the same thing in the other room. Someone said they were in Florida and they drank it, and that person in the other room said to me and he told them, but I'm from Chicago, and Chicago they don't let it. You should call them. I would recommend the same thing.
what about Red Bull?
I called him.
No, I'm saying I would recommend that he call us. So
Sorry.
okay.
What about Red Bull?
Red Bull. I don't remember where it's holding at. Red Bull has hashgacha. I don't remember where it's holding it. Whether we do or don't recommend it, you have to call the office. I don't know offhand. The Prime, I was involved because I've been at several of their factories, so we know a certain amount of information about that. Red Bull, I don't remember. You have to call the office. I don't remember what they say. Okay, let's move to some other questions. Okay, before I pick one, do you guys have a question you want me to answer? Go.
Product that says may contain milk. What does that mean?
Okay, it says may contain milk. so if it has hashgacha that says that it's par, I wouldn't worry about that. It says may contain milk. Companies are very particular about allergen type things, and allergens are much more strict than Kashrus is. basically, in that way, which is to say, if the factory has just particles floating around in the air, they would write that just to make sure they're safe and covered. Not every company is like that, but many companies are very particular about it. So if the hashgacha says it's parv, I wouldn't worry that it says may contain dairy in it. That wouldn't bother me. If it's hashgacha says it's milchugs, then milchugs it is. But just the may contain, that doesn't. Not so important.
If it says OUD.
Okay, so if it says OUD, actually I talked to them about it. It says OUD, so then there's a few layers here. One is it may actually have milk ingredients. Some people could read ingredients and could tell you whether it does or doesn't. Sometimes you could read the ingredient. Sometimes you or someone who knows ingredients could read it and tell that there's no milk in it. When you have a flavor that's already you're stuck. As soon as you hit the word flavor, because you have no idea what that flavor contains, it could have things in it that are milchigs. And even if it doesn't have an allergen statement, it could be has milchigs and it's not an allergen. I know that sounds strange, but it could be. If there's really nothing milchigs in it, like you could call the hashgachas on it and say to them, guys, I want to eat this and this product. It says on it D, is that really dairy or is it really dairy equipment? They may be able to tell you that it's only dairy equipment, in which case most people, not Hasidim, most people then would eat it even if they eat only Chol Yisrael, and you could eat it as long as you don't eat it with meat. You could eat it after meat, even if you're fleishigs, you could eat it. Hasidim wouldn't eat it at all. They're makbid on DE even for kale. Even they wouldn't eat it at all.
If it's not an allergen, you still know where that means dairy?
Yes, and that's because the opposite of what I said beforehand. Beforehand I told you that people allergens are stricter than the din is, but in some ways the din is stricter than the allergens are, and that's because, as a rule, most people are allergic to proteins. So in milk, there's casein as a protein and whey as a protein, but lactose and oil are not proteins. So like if something has butter oil in it, a flavor could have butter oil in it, and that would be very milchigs, but it wouldn't be an allergen. Or it could have lactose in it, and it wouldn't be an allergen. It wouldn't be considered a dairy allergen, even though we would consider it to be milchigs. It is milchigs, but allergen-wise, it wouldn't be. So in that way, the din is stricter than the allergen. I know that sounds funny. I said the opposite beforehand, but
Bud Light Kosher.
what?
Bud Light Kosher.
Say it again.
Bud Light Kosher.
Is Bud Light? I believe that it's okay. I don't remember. You can check our liquor list. I'm not here. I don't remember. I'm not prepared to talk to you about liquor. I believe that's okay. Do you have a reason specifically to think that it's not okay?
Heard that something going on.
I don't know. You have to. You can ask our office. I don't remember. I think it's okay. I don't remember. Okay. Let's do another one. I'm skipping around because we're never going to cover everything that I have here. So let's do another one. Okay. Some people don't eat Jelly Belly and lots of foods like that because they say that it has bugs in it. So the question is, well, if it has bugs in it, okay, hey, if it has bugs, we don't want to eat it. If it has bugs in it, why does it have hashgacha on it? Right? I just told you before, bugs are not kosher. So if it has bugs in it, why would somebody think that it is kosher? Okay, any guesses here? What's going on over here? Yes?
It has bug poop on it.
And therefore what?
Yeah, or since it comes from a bug, it's not kosher.
So it is kosher or it's not kosher? What? You're in the middle of a sentence.
Is it? I'm saying, is it not kosher or not?
Well, I asked you first. I said, some people don't eat it because they say it's not kosher. I mean, bugs sound like not kosher to me. So then how comes... And not only do people eat it, it has hashgacha on it.
Some people say that it's like the same thing with sprinkles.
Yeah, it's the same question, that there are sprinkles that some people eat and some people don't eat it. So some people don't eat it because it has bugs in it. And some people say, yeah, it has hashgacha on it. So make up your mind. Is it kosher or is it not kosher? Which one?
It's basically the bugs that you find.
Yeah, that was what he said. Therefore what?
Stuff that comes from most of the Shellac is kosher.
So that's a shiloh. Okay, that's what you say. Anybody else?
Honey is mutter.
It's crushed.
What did you say?
Honey is mutter.
Honey is mutter. That's correct. That's a good question. How come honey is mutter if bees are not kosher? Okay, so what's the answer to your question? So that you're telling me that's why it should be okay.
It's not considered a direct byproduct of the meat.
Okay, so the Gemara has two explanations for why honey is kosher. One explanation is that one pshat the Gemara says is that honey is kosher because honey, bees take pollen and they put into a part of their stomach, into a part of their mouth, and they add an enzyme to it. But basically, they're putting the pollen back into their hive, and then it changes into honey. So one answer to the Gemara is that basically it's just pollen. It's just what they. I'm sorry, I said pollen. I meant nectar. So they take nectar from the plants. Basically, it's just nectar. So it's not coming from the bee. The bee picked up nectar and put it down someplace else, and it's the same thing. That's one answer to the Gemara. So that's only if it's exactly what it picked up. It wouldn't apply to our case over here. The other answer to the Gemara is that Xeris HaKosef, it's really is considered to come from the bee, but it's a special Xeris HaKosef that's mutter anyhow. Even though it comes from the bee, it's still considered to be a special Xeris HaKosef. Again, only honey doesn't help you for something else. So the answer is like this. What we're talking about here, what's on the jelly belly or his sprinkles or chocolates, it's on some chocolates. It's something called confectioner's glaze or resinous glaze, goes by different names. And it's this shiny liquid that makes things shiny, keeps moisture inside also. And it comes from this bug that lives in the Far East. It lives on a certain tree. And it sits there all day sucking, living on the tree and excreting this clear this liquid that it gives off. Okay, that it spends its whole life giving out this liquid. Right? They scrape it off the tree, and they process it, and they turn it into this thing, this shellac. Okay, that's what it makes. What we call shellac. Like you have shellac on your floors in your dining room. Yeah, that's what the same stuff. Okay, so they put it. It's that's originally that its use was for coating furniture and pianos and things like that. Now the bug itself is, of course, it's usher. Bugs are usher. We all know bugs are usher. The question is like this. When the bug, the things that come out of treif animals are also treif. Like, let's say you have a horse and you milk the horse. The milk that comes out of that horse is called the yotzei min hatami. Comes from a treif animal. It's also treif. So the shellac this liquid that comes out of this bug should also be treif. That would be the obvious choice, is that it should be treif. But what Moshe says is that since when it comes out of the insect, it's not edible. It's completely not edible. Okay, it's like hard as a rock. Okay, it has no way. Nobody would eat this stuff. Therefore, it's not considered a food, because the din is that a yotzei from an animal is treif, but pirsha, excrement, okay, things that it gives off that are not edible are not treif. So Moshe says, wait a second. It's only not treif when you scrape it off. But then I put it onto my sprinkles or my jelly beans, so now it became edible. Now it's an item that we can't eat. So he says, no, that's not true. The only reason why this is also is because it came out of a treif animal. So we have to look at it at the time that it leaves the animal. When it left the animal, it wasn't edible. If when it left the animal, it wasn't edible, it stays mutter forever. As opposed to if it's an animal thing itself, like let's say carmine. Anybody here know what carmine is? Okay, carmine is a color, like red, it makes red and orange colors. It's made from crushing up a certain beetle to make this color. Okay, so that it's not something that came out of the bug; it's the actual bug itself. So there, even if it's not considered edible, it makes no difference, because by the time I get it, it's part of my grapefruit juice, and that in the grapefruit juice it is edible. So then it would be a problem. But this just comes out of the bug, and when it comes out of the bug, it's not edible. Therefore, Ramosha says that's why it's mutter.
How do they get it edible? They heat it up?
Well, really, the main reason why it becomes edible is because there's just so little of it on your food. There's so little of it on your food that you don't notice it. Okay, that's the main reason why it becomes edible. It becomes part of foods. It's not that they did something that really made it much more tasty afterwards. Okay, it's the same stuff, but just so little bit on the top that you basically don't notice it. Okay, but now that's what Moshe says. But not everybody. What? It keeps it shiny and it keeps the moisture inside of it. That's why they put it on. But now that's what Moshe said. But not everybody agrees to that. So because of Moshe, that's why there's hashkachas on it, because the hashkachas who are giving hashkacha are accepting that position. Okay, well, there's lots of people who don't agree with that, and they say like this. This is what Rabbi Yasha says like this. He says, when we differentiate between something that came out that's yotzei from the tamei versus a pirsha, just excrement that comes out of the animal, that's because the animal itself is edible, like a horse is edible, right? You could make horses meat. So what comes out, if what comes out tastes good, it's mutter. If what comes out is not edible, I'm sorry, if what tastes good it's usher. If what comes out is not edible, it's mutter. He says, but the bug, what happens by a bug? The bug itself was not edible. The Torah said it's usher anyhow. The Torah asked bugs even though they don't taste good. If the Torah asks the bugs even if they don't taste good, then it doesn't make a difference whether what comes out of them is edible or not edible. No matter what, it's going to be usher. Okay, there's no heter of pirsha for a bug which in itself is not edible. Okay.
It's actually beetles.
So what?
The beetles aren't either edible now.
Right, but the Torah says bugs are also if you eat the bug itself, the bug is also even if it's not edible. It doesn't make when the Torah asks bugs, it asks them even though we know they're not edible.
Maybe it is edible. You just
Or maybe they taste good.
not that they taste good, but you can put it in grapefruit juice and I guess come out okay.
Okay,
So that it's edible to some degree.
that's an interesting way of looking. You're saying is that since it can be used as a food ingredient, so that means essentially it's edible. So I'm telling you that the bugs are not edible in the first place. You say, what do you mean the bugs are edible? Of course the bugs are edible. If I use them correctly, they could be edible. Okay, it's a fair question.
It's not in what we said before.
That what?
What's the definition of edible? Whether you could force it down or whether you actually eat it.
Well, so the question is like this. Over here, and there's something interesting about this, and that is like this. You're making it sound like, to you it's obvious that nobody would choose to eat this if they had a choice. Okay? And Rosh Zalman Auerbach said like this. He said, when you want to tell people to find out whether they consider something edible or not, he says, can't tell them what it is. He says, his example is the Gemara says, if you have meiraglayim shel chamar, okay, urine from a horse, okay, the Gemara is not sure whether it's edible or not edible. He says, if I told you what it was, you for sure wouldn't eat it. Right? Obviously, you wouldn't eat it if I told you what it was. He says, that's not the way to test it by telling the guy what it is. If you tell him what it is, he's biased. He's not going to eat it. Don't tell him what it is. You tell him, this is Mountain Dew, and this is meiraglayim shel chamar. Okay? They both look the same. Okay? Which one do you want to drink? Okay? Which one do you want? He doesn't know that one is meiraglayim shel chamar. He just thinks it's two different varieties of Mountain Dew. Okay, so then you'll see whether it's really edible. So you say, oh my gosh, nobody would want to eat this because it. So we assume it's not edible, but you really have to test it. That's what he's saying. Let's test it. Let's find out. Maybe they really taste good. I don't know.
Once we see people actually eat it, so then we consider it.
Then it would be considered edible. Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, so this is a machlokes about this. Most of the national hashgachas in the United States will give hashgacha. This is based on Ramosha. There are lots of people who won't eat it. And there's a lot of the other hashgachas, a lot of the smaller hashgachas who also won't certify it. They won't give hashgacha with that. And they'll write on the package, contains no shellac or no confectioner's glaze or like that. Particularly in Chicago, there's lots of people who don't eat it. But in lots of places, there are people who don't eat it. Based on theirs also. Okay, so tell me if you have another question. Otherwise, I'll go to one of my other ones. We're running out of time.
Starbucks twist, the series you just put out, or we're supposed to.
What about it? What's your question about?
What's it say?
What does it say on it? Okay, well, I'll give you a few minutes of Starbucks if you want. Coffee per se, it's actually very similar to what I told you before about juice. Coffee per se is kosher. Okay, just you make plain coffee, it's kosher. The problem is that in Starbucks, they don't just make coffee. They make lots and lots of things, including a lot of them make hot tray sandwiches. Okay, you get your sandwich heated up, and the problem is that there's a lot of places where kalim could be mixed together. Not mixed together like that. The sandwich machine will be making your coffee, but you wash things together. And the question is, how much of that crosses over to affect your coffee or the drink that you want to have? And that's one basic question that comes into a lot of the Starbucks drinks is there a concern that blia is going from the treif stuff into the kosher stuff? Some of them actually have ingredients that are problematic. Okay, some of the things that are more fancy than just the plain coffee. Right? There's all kinds of things that have other ingredients where the ingredients might be a problem. But even if you stick to the stuff without ingredient problems, the question is, are some of the kalim treif because of other things that are made in the store that while they get washed, the tam could transfer from one to the other? That's the short version. What the actual details, you have to wait for the list. I don't know if the list came out yet or not. That's what it depends on. Yes? You want to say something?
Black coffee, you gotta tell me.
So, the CRC, I believe, does not recommend it because they're concerned about kalim being shared for them. They tell people to buy something called Americano. Anybody here know what an Americano is? Okay. Americano is sort of an insult. Okay. It's insulting you. Okay. And that is like this. There's something called espresso. In Europe, the way they drink coffee is they make, instead of a big cup, like 8-ounce cup of coffee, they draw all the flavor out of the beans into a very concentrated little cup, like a little schnapps glass, and all the flavor of the coffee is in this little schnapps glass. It's called an espresso. Okay, it's a very concentrated way of drinking coffee. Well, Americans don't like coffee like that, so they don't want to drink their coffee. They want to drink a whole cup of it. And there's the same amount of flavor in a big cup instead of all squished into one little concentrated drink like that. So, what the Americans do is they take this espresso, and then they take a full cup of water and they dilute it into it. Okay, they dilute the espresso into a cup of water. So they're from the European perspective, they're ruining their espresso. Instead of having it concentrated, they're diluting it into water. They call that an Americano. That's like you stupid Americans who don't know how to drink espresso, who want to dilute into water. You're missing the point. Okay, so that's like you make espresso, then you dilute into water. But the way they make it in the store, the machine that makes the espresso doesn't get washed with anything else. Okay, it's a machine that's stationary. It doesn't get washed with everything else. It just stays where it is. They wash it in place. So you take the espresso, put that into a disposable cup of hot water, and then you're good. And then basically you got yourself a cup of coffee. That's basically what you're drinking is a cup of coffee. You're taking concentrated coffee with water instead of plain coffee. Give or take, it's the same thing.
Besides the candle problem, everything else, if you check the...
So then there's ingredients, and there are ingredient issues.
There are ingredients, most of them are German.
No, I mean, what I mean, when you get to certain more complicated drinks that they make, so there are drinks that have coffee and milk and cream. Those are pretty straightforward. But there are other ingredients that go into some of the fancier drinks. I don't remember them offhand. Some of the drinks that go into some of the ingredients in the fancier drinks that do not have shkach. Okay.